and optimum yield of various crops. Maintenance of a plucking table. Done to prevent a rise in height of a plucking table. Done by cutting back the tea bush to 5 centimeters above the last pruning height after 2 to 5 years. 3 months later, tipping is done. After many such pruning, cutting back to 45 centimeters above ground is done to maintain plucking height. This is called rehabilitation. It is done after every 45 to 50 years. Pruning mature tea. The following needs to be observed when pruning tea. Side branches below the pruning height should never be cut back. The outside edge of bush should not be cut at a higher level than the center. The bush should from the beginning be pruned parallel with the slope of the ground and not on a horizontal plane. Use a pruning stick. Cut the branches across as far as possible to minimize the area of the wounds. Long sloping cuts increase dieback and risk disease infection. Small branches and twigs on the frame are removed by hand. Do not clean up with a knife after pruning. Protective cape should be left to grow above the frame in Rift Valley and Meru districts during the dry period. Cut branches are left to rot in the field and act as mulch. Use a sharp pruning knife to avoid breaking cuts. After several pruning, cut back the tea bushes to original table. That is, change the cycle. Every 3 years, tea bushes must be pruned back to 5 centimeters above the previous pruning level to avoid the development of detrimental callus tissue.
This is tea that has been pruned recently, and pruning is done after every 4 years so that we can encourage fresh growth of new shoots. And as you can see, we have some new shoots that are coming up. However, as they continue growing, you need to, then you need to encourage lateral growth.
Then you dispose it. Then the remaining buds, they will now spread over here, such that with time it will be covered with more shoots, and it will be now for increased production. There will
Tipping. Tipping involves the cutting back of shoots to the desired table height at 20 centimeters above the pegging height. Done 3 months after formation or after the last cutting back. Involves removal of 3 leaves and a bud from each shoot above the required table height level. Y-shaped sticks 50 centimeters high and a long straight stick 2 meters long are used. The straight stick is placed on the Y-shaped stick which touch the ground. Banana stool management. Pruning involves the removal of extra suckers in the stool. 3 to 6 stems per stool is recommended. These should be at different stages of development, one bearing, one half-grown, and the other starting to grow so that they come into bearing at different times. Suckers should be cut deep at the root to stop them growing again. Dry, diseased leaves should be removed using a sickle or a panga. Cutting back in pyrethrum. This involves the removal of old stems down to the level of the top foliage at the end of each cropping year towards the end of the dry season. Cut down dead stalks. Training. Practice of manipulating plants to grow in a designed direction and shape, achieved through staking, propping, and trellising. Training practices. Staking. Supporting plants having weak stems with help of a thin, long, strong stick. Crops staked include tomatoes, garden peas, and some bean varieties. Propping. Providing support for tall varieties of bananas and those that have heavy bunches using forked stakes. Trellising. This provides support for crops with vines using wire or sisal strings. The wires or strings are held by poles at definite spacing. Earthing up. It improves tuber formation in Irish and sweet potatoes. It promotes seeds production in groundnuts. It improves drainage in tobacco, and it provides support and prevents lodging in maize. Crop protection. Control of weeds. Weeds. Plants growing where they are not wanted. For example, maize in a garden of cabbages. Interplanted crops are not weeds. Control of pests. Pests. These are living organisms harmful to crops. For example, insects, nematodes, thrips, and mites. Damage crops in the fields and stores, reducing quality and quantity of product. Control of diseases. Disease. Any alteration in the state of an organism and functions of a plant or its parts. It's caused by pathogens and nutritional disorders. Deficiency of calcium. This nutrient deficiency in tomatoes result to crop attacked by blossom end rot.
There are very many challenges that a farmer would face when he's trying to grow vegetables in the field. Now, some of these challenges that I'm holding here, these ones, they are showing deficiency of phosphorus. Phosphorus is one of the major. Now, deficiency of nitrogen in the field can be solved by addition of nitrogenous fertilizers. But it is always recommended that if a farmer notices deficiency of elements in his soil, or if he is in doubt, then he should always take has very few roots. Now, this plant cannot grow properly because it cannot absorb water. It's widows. Now, the effect of those holes is to reduce the photosynthetic area, meaning that the plant is unable to mature. It cannot grow to maturity, and therefore, not unless these pests are controlled, there will be no production from this cabbage.
Harvesting. Harvesting is the final operation in crop production. All the preceding operations have already determined the amount of harvest the farmer can expect. At this stage, no changes in yield can be made, but if done at wrong stage, may cause loss in quantity and quality. Stage and timing of harvesting. Time of harvesting is determined by purpose of the crop, market demand, consumer's preference, concentration of the required chemical, weather conditions, and prevailing market price. Market demand. Consumer's preference is considered before harvesting, for example, green maize or dry grains. Prevailing market price and profit margins. Harvesting in some crops, for example, carrots and some fruits, can be delayed for a month to wait for market prices to improve. Purpose of the crop or use which the crop was intended. For example, maize for silage is harvested just before flowering. The one for grains should be harvested after grains mature. Concentration of the required chemical. For example, ripe berries provide the required caffeine in tea. The two youngest leaves and a terminal bud give the highest quality. Weather conditions. Planting should be timed so that harvesting is done during dry season. This is synchronization of planting and harvesting. Post-harvest practices. These are the practices carried out after harvesting. They include the following: threshing or shelling, commonly done when harvesting cereals. Drying, done after harvesting to store grain at an appropriate moisture content to prevent damage in the store. Vegetables can be sun-dried and packed in airtight containers for use during scarcity. Cleaning, improve keeping quality. For example, fruits canned. Reduce bulkiness before transportation and storage. For example, sugarcane crushed into sugar. Sorting and grading, done according to the quality. For example, in coffee, they are graded as grade 1 and 2, where 1 are big and well ripened, while grade 2 are under or overripe, diseased and small. Dusting, application of chemical powder on seeds to prevent storage pest attack. Processing. Transformation of a raw material into final products so as to improve the flavor of products, for example, tobacco and tea, and improve keeping quality, for example, fruits canned. Packaging. Placement of produce into containers for storage, sale, or transportation. It reduces damage to products, makes it easy for farmer to quantify and set prices. Storage. Storage is the keeping of farm produce after harvesting in good conditions. This is necessary to ensure availability of products all the year round and improves conditions to prevent losses. Farm produce can be stored in sacks, in containers, or bulk in various types of stores. Characteristics of an ideal store. Ideal store should be clean, dry, free from pests and diseases, waterproof, rodent-free, and easy to control pests and diseases. Types of stores. Traditional granaries, which are elevated above the ground by posts and made of wooden twigs woven together and roofed with thatching. Disadvantages of traditional storage. Rats and weevils attack, rooting of grains, and limited in size. Preparation of the store. Cleaning the store, maintaining, for example, repair or replacing worn-out parts, dusting, and clearing vegetation around the store.